While Tuesday's midterm elections have consumed attention in this country, an extraordinary election took place last Sunday in Brazil. Far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro was elected as that country's next president. Known for his extreme views and history of racist, misogynistic, and homophobic remarks, Bolsonaro's election is part of a larger rise of far-right politicians around the globe. Ernesto Londoño is the New York Times Brazil bureau chief. He joins me now via Skype from Rio de Janeiro. So I understand that until recently, few people thought that Bolsonaro could be elected because he is so extreme. Can you just tell us a little bit about him?
Jair Bolsonaro is a former army captain. He's been in Congress for 3 decades. And within Congress, he was a pretty marginal figure. He was somewhat of a provocateur who was known for saying incendiary, extraordinarily offensive, and politically incorrect things.
Talk to me a little bit more about the struggles that Brazil has seen in recent years. I mean, what are the conditions there that led to his election?
Well, last year, Brazil had a record number of homicides. 63,000 people were killed here violently last year. That is an extraordinary figure, and it has come to really shape the way Brazils think about their future and think about their options. On the other hand, much of the political elite, many of the parties that have become, sort of the ruling class, if you will, over the past couple of decades, became ensnarled in this massive corruption investigation that exposed Brazilian Congress and many of the top companies in the country as, essentially pervasively and institutionally corrupt. Jair Bolsonaro came out and said, look, how many lawmakers can claim that they have absolutely no allegations of graft to their name? I'm clean and I'm not going to spare anybody in my quest to restore order and to upend the status quo in Brasilia that made the capital such a hotbed of corruption.
In terms of the violent crime problem, what are the types of things that he's advocated doing?
Rio de Janeiro and many of the larger cities in Brazil are cities where the police is extraordinarily violent, where there's historically been a shoot first, ask questions later approach. In Rio de Janeiro, so far this year, roughly 1 out of 4 persons killed violently has been killed at the hands of the police. Jair Bolsonaro and his allied governors and his allied lawmakers are saying we're going to just ratchet up that a couple of notches further.
I understand that there have been protests since his election last weekend. Tell me about those.
The incoming president has said he is no fan of affirmative action, and he has a long history of speaking critically and derisively of members of the gay and transgender community, of women, of indigenous communities. So people in those groups, many of them are saying, how are we going to protect ourselves in this era? And are our rights that have been, hard fought over the past few decades going to be safe in a Bolsonaro administration?
Brazil, as you have reported, is dealing with a migrant crisis on its border with Venezuela. Did that play a role in Bolsonaro's election?
He was also running against a leftist rival, and he told voters that a vote for his rival amounted to putting Brazil on the path that Venezuela is in. One thing I think we can safely expect in a Bolsonaro administration is a far harder line toward the government in Venezuela, which historically had been an ally of the Brazilian government. Just what shape that's going to take and just what Mr. Bolsonaro is going to be willing and able to do to squeeze the Maduro administration in the neighboring country remains to be seen. But if he sticks to his rhetoric and if his policy matches his rhetoric, I think we're going to see some real friction and tension in the months ahead.
What other indications are there of what to expect from him in his first weeks as president?
I think one thing that is fascinating and remarkable is the U.S.-Brazil relationship for many years has been strained by 1, 2, or 3 thorns that always seem to get in the way of a better relationship. In Bolsonaro, you have somebody who is remarkably aligned with President Trump, both temperamentally and in terms of his worldview. So I think we can expect somebody who's going to work very collaboratively with the Trump administration and is going to want to position himself as an ally, on a range of matters. For instance, taking a more skeptical view of the role of China in the region, and perhaps taking a harder look at the trade relationships.
Ernesto Londoño of the New York Times, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.